Ooh, that looks tasty. Welcome, folks, to The Hungry Gamers, back with another mini preview. And today we're talking about Dungeon Makers, designed by Wes Woodbury from Fundamental Games. Now, Makers, S there, is a tile-laying game for 1 or 2 players in which you are building a dungeon. You're not killing anything. You're not adventuring in it. You're just building it. And as you're building up this dungeon, eventually you'll wind up with a 5x5 dungeon, or in theory somebody will wind up with a 5x5 dungeon. What you're trying to do is you're trying to create the best paths that will score you the most points. And in some cases, simply by putting a tile down, you'll get points. In other cases, you're going to be putting together paths. So you have tunnels next to tunnels, or mazes next to mazes. And as you get further in the game, you're going to have the ability to put minions, little monster meeple things that are actually kind of cool, really cute, out into dungeon. And you're going to have the opportunity to move these meeples around through the dungeon. And you'll send them through the maze, and they'll go all the way through the maze. They'll come out the other end, and you'll get points for every tile that they cross through. Same thing with tunnels. You can send them through the tunnels. They get points for every of the different tunnels that they cross through. If you wind up putting them in a chamber, and that's what the game ends, you'll get more points for that. And so you're just kind of building up a dungeon and working this puzzle of what's going to get you the most points. Now, as I said, you also are playing against somebody else. And if in your 5x5 grid, you wind up with a piece that has a pathway going off the edge of the board, kind of out into oblivion, well, that's going to give you the ability to put your minions into their dungeon. If they don't send one of their minions to fight and you both kill each other, then they're going to want to gain pretty big negative points at the end of the game. You can also put in some kind of rockfall tiles in there, which again, they'll have to send a minion down to clear out, and it'll be worth negative points. But for the most part, you're getting your points by you're putting these tiles down in places, moving your minions through them, and there's a little bit of set collection as well as you're putting certain types of monsters and traps out into the dungeon. And the more of those that you have, the same types or pairs, or as I said, the sets for the different traps, you're going to get more and more points. You also can't have a good dungeon without treasure. So for every bit of treasure in your dungeon, you're going to be getting points. And whoever has more treasure at the end, you're going to get even more points. And so points. Now, all that sounds simple enough. Pick 1 of 3 tiles, put it in, make a dungeon. However, the meat of this game is there is an action tile. And what you're going to do is you're going to, when the tile's on one side specifically, all you can do is pick a tile, put it in your dungeon. Then you will flip the tile over to the other side after you've done that, and now you have 4 options around this tile, which, as you can see, it looks like this. So this side, all you can do is place a tile, but then you're going to flip it over to the other side here, and as you can see, you have several options there. At the top, you have the ability to swap one tile out of your dungeon for another tile that is on the stack. The bottom, you can place one of those block tiles in the other player's dungeon, or you can move one of your tiles. That's here on the bottom. Then on the top, place a minion in your dungeon, and then you can move one of your minions through your dungeon. Now, great. So you got 4 actions. You place a tile, then you have to do something else. You can always place one with that action and flip it over. But here's the catch. Every time you flip it, the whole game, you have to flip the exact same orientation. So I'm always flipping side to side. I'm not this turn flipping like this, and this turn flipping like this, because the orientation matters. So on the second turn, when I flip it over, this is what I see. So I'm going to have to either turn it this way and take this action, or turn it this way and take this action. Then when the turn is over, I flip it, follow my orientation. I do this, I flip it back, and then I have to turn it this way or this way. So the actions that you take are not all available to you all the time. So that's going to bring me into what do I like about this game. Well, first I want to start with this. I think this is very clever. This is a very clever thing. And I like all the different types of points that you can get, the ways you get points, moving through the dungeon, placing, going for the set collection, placing down the puzzle rooms, which are kind of like little pink ones. You put those down, you get points. But then if you move them somewhere else, you get more points. And it's all very clever, different ways to score. And it leads me to believe that that gives you a lot of different strategies that you can follow through the game. Great. But This here makes it interesting because you're just limited to what it is that you can do. And I found myself, I was so tempted because I didn't want to take one of these two-side actions. Like, I don't need that, I don't need it. So I was like, well, whatever, I'll just flip it back over and get another tile. And then flip it again, oh yeah, I'm still stuck there. So you have to kind of figure out what it is that you're going to do sometimes to get to what it is that you really want. And it just adds a level of strategy and forethought to what is a very simple light tile laying game. And I think that is very, very clever. I already said I like all the different types of rooms that you have that are available to you. That's great. The next thing I'll say is the aesthetic of the game. This is something that it reminds me of when I used to play 4 Against Darkness. You have your little grid, and I'd be like drawing my own little things. Of course, I can't draw; it looked terrible. But with this looks to me like what a 4 Against Darkness end dungeon would look like if I could draw. And it's in between like serious art and just fun casual, and it's clever and it's unique on the shelf. And so I find the art to be very unique. And it's something that I think you're either going to be very charmed by or you're going to say, I don't care about that. Which brings me right into my quibbles with the game. As I said, you might be interested by the art, you might not. My number one quibble with the game is this. I like this. It's clever. It's also my number one quibble. This thing rules your life. And sometimes you just want to put down some dumb tiles. And you can't. Because, well, you can always put down tiles, but you know what I mean. And so there is a little bit of frustration that can come in when you're playing. You're like, I just want to do the thing, but I can't. See, right now, all I can do is something with the meeples. Great. But I don't want to do something with the meeples. I want to do one of these. However, if I want to do that, I have to take this action, and I have to take a meeple action, because if I take the middle one, it's just going to flip over. It's going to come back. Boop. So there's an action maybe I didn't want. It flips. And you know what? I still don't want a tile. That's not what I want. I wanted to move something around, but now I have to take a tile. Then we flip it back. And now, finally, I can go and I can move a tile or drop a block into yours. And that is frustrating at times. And the next thing I'll say is at the end of the day, it feels like this is a tease of interaction. Yes, you can throw some minions into your opponent's dungeon. Yes, you can block them off. So basically you can take points away from them and you can make them lose actions. And I don't know. For a game that feels so multiplayer solitaire, which I don't think is a bad thing, and it is mostly multiplayer solitaire, having these interactions that are just negative and just negative points can be a real turnoff for a lot of people. It's not quite take that, but it is a little take that. Oh, here's a block. You better go get rid of that. You're going to lose points. But of course, to get rid of it, you got to send a minion to do it. And you're going to lose that minion. So that's going to lose you more points because if the minion was just in the dungeon, you would have points. And it's going to block off where you are. It's just take that stuff. And in a game that is kind of these fun puzzle-like collection of making your cool maze, I just don't know that that is going to be for everyone. And then on the flip side, though, if you like the idea of messing up the other person's dungeon, well, you can't do it very much. You got 3 blocks you can throw out there, and only if they leave it open can you send your minions in there. So, and again, you have to hurt yourself to do it, because you have to get rid of the minions that are yours, put them in their dungeon, which will be getting you points. Now, yes, it costs them more points not to have it, but you see what I mean. And so I think the interaction for me, I wish it was either more stuff you could do, so it was more back and forth, or less. Or in ways that, you help me help you type thing. So, okay, I can do something. If I do this thing to you, you're going to get a bonus, but I'm going to get a bonus too. So it's worth doing. For me, it's just kind of treading the line of, oh, we have some interaction here, and it's kind of mean interaction, but just a little bit of it. So that just might feel like you have a foot on both sides of the fence there, and it's not really deciding what it wants to be. Now, there is also a solo mode. I've not got to try the solo mode. It wasn't in the prototype I had, though it does now exist. I unfortunately don't have time to check it out. But I will say that this is the type of game that for me screams for a solo mode. But then the last thing that I'll say is, at the end of the day, it's just a tile laying game, which, great, I like tile laying games. but it's not doing anything that is mind-blowingly unique. And again, that's okay. Very few games are doing things mind-blowingly unique. But if you're looking for something that is totally fresh, this is not it. This is a fun, simple, light game. You can throw it down, you can play pretty quickly. So there you have it, folks. That is Dungeon Makers. I think this is a clever little game. I think the size of the box makes it one that is worth checking out if you like tile laying games. Really look a little closer at how the player interaction works, see if that's something that's interesting to you or not. Check out what the solo rules are, because again, if you're not interested in that, mean player interaction, it might work out just playing against the AI bot. And I can't imagine it's going to be that expensive because it's a small box with just, some tiles in there, but what do I know? So there you have it, folks. That is Dungeon Makers. As always, if you found this video useful, please like, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.